It is 7 o'clock by my watch, and so we may have a few more dribbling in tonight in the rain and sleet or whatever's happening out there. But we want to say how much we appreciate your being here. This is the 15th season of the Tony Woiak Festivals, and when we started, we never could have imagined it would go on that long. We were scrabbling to come up with new ideas or new speakers and presenters, and the more we searched, the more they came, and the more people wanted to be here to listen. And I do appreciate that. And so all season long, this winter festival and next summer will be part of the 15th season. And we want to make sure we remember to thank you all for being here, because this is the way we continue to tell the stories about our past and our shared experiences and learn about new experiences as well. So thank you for being here. And our presenter tonight is Sue Schreiner, retired counselor at the school in Washburn. And she sort of is one of these people that in retirement turned around and found something really interesting to do. And so she's got some stories to tell about that and about the things she's found. And if you came in at the last minute or didn't have time, she's got a table of artifacts at the back of the room that at the end of the evening you might want to stop and actually see some of the things that she has discovered. So I'm going to let her have all this time, and thank you again for being here. Thank you to the Harbor Table. And by the way, they have not changed their price for our renting this space in 15 years, which I think is pretty remarkable. They charge us $100 to be here, and they set up all the chairs, and they take down all the chairs. So even if you don't want to spend money at the restaurant or buy a drink, if you get a chance to thank any of them, we are so grateful for them, because where would we be if we weren't here? I don't know. So once again, thank you and welcome, Sue Schreiner.
I've been nervous about this for a while. But I just seen this great crowd. I think it's going to go great. First of all, I want to thank the Heritage Association and the museum for putting this on, and for all their work preserving and sharing history, because when you become a metal detectorist, you kind of get into history and learning about your area and things and people that have been here. So I think they do a great job. I've seen a lot of the programs, and I think I just want to thank them for everything. Jenny asked if I would talk about, let's go, a little bit about how I got into metal detecting. And one question I always have is, are metal detectorists made or born? And I don't know the answer to that. I come from a big family of 8 kids, and we didn't have much money, and so the way we got money was after any kind of town gathering, we'd go downtown and look on the streets and find whatever we could. And so I think I've been looking for money and stuff all my life. And so this is just an extension of that. And one thing Ginny doesn't know is I've been doing this for about 20 years. So you can see I have a lot of things. I make a book every year about my finds. And then I'll tell you some of this. So since I've been doing this for about 20 years, I want you to know that it's not that easy to find great stuff. You have to be persistent, and you have to do something with the audio. And one of my goals is to just find one good thing. And some days you don't find any good thing, and sometimes you find more than one good thing. But I've been doing it a lot, and it's my passion, so you probably have all seen me around town. Anybody who does metal detecting has to be aware of the metal detecting code of ethics, because if people don't respect other people's property, then it's going to wreck it for everyone. So I just always want to bring that up. You can find them anywhere on a metal detecting thing. One thing that's a little bit unusual for me compared to some of the other people I detect with is I always think that the things I find belong to the property owner. In fact, that's what's true when you read about what's on your property belongs to the person whose property it is. And so the things I find that are back there are either I didn't find them in someone's yard or they didn't want what I found. I take pictures and make books so that then I have a record of what I found. But if I do your yard, I'll show you all the stuff, and you can take what you want, if all of it. And just like a person who has a good fishing spot, metal detectors don't say where they went. And so I have some cool stuff, but I'm not going to tell you where I found it. And I want to respect the property owner's thing, because I don't want someone to go up to someone and say, hey, I saw that cool thing that Sue Schreiner found in your yard. So I won't be disclosing that. In the back, like Ginny said, I have a display of some stuff. I have a little area of mystery items that I don't know what the heck they are. So if you know what weird stuff is and you say, hey, I know what that is, there's a little post-it note, just write down what it is so then I can put it in my book. And I also have just places for you to write notes for me if like maybe you want me to help you find your property stake, just leave me a note and I'll do that. I also have business cards so you can have my information. And tonight I'm just going to focus on things I found in Washburn. So it's not that it's here in our community, and you're kind of be surprised at some of the things I found. And the order of my presentation is I'm going to start out with the pre-1800s, and I don't have a lot of stuff there. And then I do find quite a few military-related items. And then I'm just going to go with local historical finds and some miscellaneous fun things, and then questions and possible answers. I mean, since I didn't live back in the 1800s, I don't know much about stuff, but I Google a lot of things, and I read a lot of books, and I know what some things are, but I'll give you the best shot I have. So the first thing I've ever found was this piece of float copper. I had a cheap old metal detector, because I wonder if I was born to be a treasure hunter. It was a one old Radio Shack one. I think it was used because it was really a piece of junk and I couldn't get it fixed when it broke. And so I was in my backyard and I was swinging my detector, and I had a White's DFX, and on that metal detector it would say what the item was, and so it said on there that it was a silver dollar. And so I had my little hand trowel, I was digging and digging and digging. I was way over a foot deep. I had to get the long-handled shovel. I'm like, I'm getting that silver dollar. Here was float copper. And so float copper is kind of a common thing to find. It sounds really great in your headphones. So that's one of my very first finds. And then this is one of my more revered finds. Our area is rich in what they call copper culture things, because the float copper came over from Michigan with the glaciers, and the Native Americans figured out that they could make stuff with that copper. And this is a set of awls I found. And so they use those awls to make holes in the leather when they tan things and sew it together to make their homes and their garments and things like that. This one and the next one are Native American things. They found them both on private property, so I just want to make sure to tell you that. When I was detecting, when you're metal detecting, you usually find something, you throw it in your pouch. You maybe look at it a little bit, throw it in your pouch. When I got this, I thought it was a garage door opener of some sort, you know, like a little handle. Sure enough, clean it up here, it's a Native American pipe from the 1700s or 1800s. And I really didn't know what it was, and so I contacted the state archaeologist, and they got back to me and said what it was made out of, and that a lot of times it was a precious item, and so when someone died, they would bury it with the person, and then I should give it up to the tribe, and so that's what I did. But it was really cool. And now, that's all I have for that, but this is a great military find. I have my niece up a couple times a year to go metal detecting, and she always gets something cool. So here you go, a Revolutionary War grave medallion. I mean, what is that doing in Washburn? It was in an old farmstead field. My niece looked it up and was able to find out that, I mean, it says John Day on there, you can hardly see it, but it belonged to John Day, and that she found out in an archival report that he applied for his pension on July 9th in 1833, and he was 91 years old. So if you know anybody who is related to John Day, who was in the Revolutionary War, we get it back to him, but it's just an amazing find. This, it's a plume holder from the Indian Wars from 1881. And it would go on top of your helmet, and you wear it with as a dress helmet, and there would be horsehair coming out of it. And so this is what the helmet would look like. And when you can't see it good from here, but it really looks like that plume holder. That, of course, was another thing. I didn't know what it was. I threw it in my pouch, and then you clean it up, and it's like, well, there's an eagle on here. I wonder what this was. I didn't know for a long time when I was reading a metal detecting magazine, and all of a sudden, hey, I have one of those. And then I could tell what it was. These are cavalry bridle rosettes. And the U.S. Cavalry was active from the Revolutionary War all the way up to World War II. When I look up these online, they refer to these as being from World War I. That one's very small, and this one I actually have in my pocket. It's about the size of a silver dollar. So this would be on the side of the horse's bridle like that. These old forks I found in, I think, an old logging camp, but they were used in the Civil War era. And when you're researching finds, you're looking at different things over and over, here, there. And in one place, it did say that the loggers did get silverware back from the Civil War people. So that's why I threw them in here as a possible military thing. Even though this is an Ashland thing, I actually found it in Washburn. This is an award that was given to all the ex-servicemen and women during the homecoming ceremony at the Royal Theater in Ashland. So it was a pin that was given to all the World War I veterans. Can you read it okay?
What's that one?
This one says, Ashland's Welcome Home Celebration to the soldiers and sailors of Ashland County who served in the World War, 1917 and 1918. And it says, in honor of the victory. This is an old World War II compass. I have to say that, I find quite a few military things, and especially World War II things and buttons, and every time when you find something like that, you just have to have a sense of appreciation for those soldiers and how scary it was and what they gave to our country. So I just really appreciate all my military finds. This is a Seabees medal, and this is not the one I found. I found this one before I started taking pictures and making books. And so this is just a picture of one. But they were the construction battalion during World War II, and they could fight or build stuff. Am I going too fast? You okay? This little pin, I thought was just a little pin, and I had it in my little junk pile for a long time, thinking it was just jewelry. And then I was reading one of my metal detecting magazines, and I'm like, I have one of those. Here it's a military pin for, it's the oak leaf. I don't know exactly what it was for, but it's a World War II military pin. It's really pretty. Here's just a couple more buttons. That one's for the Army Transport Corps, and this one has dual pistols on it, and it was from the military police in World War II. This is a cool one. It's the World War II Victory Medal. All service personnel got one of these, and it's nice because it has the little hanger on it. Usually you don't find that part when you find a military pin. Can you read that one okay? No? Oh, it's on the outside it says, United States of America, 1941 to 1945. Freedom from fear and want, freedom of speech and religion. And then just says World War II on it. And I appreciate you telling me if you can't see everything.
And I'm in the front row.
Yeah, I'm happy to read them for you.
So, are these in your books?
Yeah?
Are these all pictures that are in your books?
Oh, all these pictures are in my books. Yeah. This is a cool little lighter. On the bottom of the lighter, it says, made in occupied Japan. And so, after the war, the United States occupied Japan from 1945 to 1952. And in order to get the economy up and running again, they let them do some exporting of things that they made. But 50% of their exports had to say either made in occupied Japan or occupied Japan. And so this little lighter was made during that time in Japan. So in 1938, they had an American Legion convention in Ashland, and then they gave out watch fobs for that. And a watch fob, do y'all know what a watch fob is? No? Okay, so that little part up here would have a leather strap on it, and that would hook into your pants or your watch pocket or something. And so your watch would be inside, and that part would flip on the outside like a, there's a lot of advertising watch fobs. So companies would give them away, and so they'd have a little advertisement on here. I have like different ones with tractors or college, I have a college one. And so this one was from that era, just, and then when you wanted to see your watch, you just pulled out the watch fob and the watch was on the other end and you could tell what time it was. And in Ashland, they had this Admiral William Leahy, and he was the highest ranking officer on active duty during World War II. And so he came here to Ashland for that big celebration. So I thought that was really cool. And these are things that you, if you come to these things often enough, you'll probably recognize some of the different things that are referred to on here. This is a Hotel Washburn watch fob, or a key fob. So it's what's I think is cool is right here. It says, I know I can hardly read it either, because remember it burnt down, and so these were in a fire. But it does say that you can throw this in the mail by postage and only costs 3 cents to get returned to Washburn.
So would the hotel was look like
Yes. Here's a picture of it. I just love this picture. So you see the guys on the porch.
Where was that?
It was in Flake Park. I call it Flake Park. I think it was more towards, yeah, towards the Forest Service, right? That side. And here's another one, a key fob. I should have written this down, but I was reading something about how many houses they had, or rooming houses they had in Washburn back in the day. And this one's from the Ferguson house. So that would be a key fob too. It was on the corner of Omaha and First Avenue across from the passenger depot. And so there's all these houses, because when they had the big cutover in Wisconsin, they had a lot of men here working and they needed a place to stay. And so they always had these kind of houses. This is what's called a trade token. And trade tokens were given out by different businesses to promote their business. And so this is the E.A. Hansen Bakery. And I have the Pope's business directory from 1888, and that's where I find a lot of my information out. And so this was here in 1988, and the population of Washburn was about 3,829 at that time. And so this one was good for a loaf of bread. There's lots of different kinds of tokens. I have found what's called a tax token, but it was for a different state. I can't remember what state it was for. And like the federal government would put a tax on things at like 0.1% or something like that. So the states got wise. They didn't want to give all that money to the feds. And so they made their own state ones that were for like 0.1 cent. or even, 3/10 of a cent. So you could pay that tax with these tokens and not give the government like a whole nickel. And then another token I have found, I gave White River, what's the White River logging camp? What would that be called? I can't remember the name of it. But people who were working at the logging camps, they didn't get paid in money, they got paid in tokens. And so they had to spend the money at the company store. And so they didn't get money, the company got them coming and going. This one is from On and Overby, and that's the old opera block. And the opera block today is, I think, the dog center. And it used to have 2 floors to it. And on the top floor, they had, they had vaudeville acts, they had dances up there and parties up there and social things. But the bottom floor was a saloon and a billiard area. And so I'm not sure if this is a token for the billiards or if you could buy alcohol with this token or not. And this Brunswick Bulky Colander Company, it's the pool table company. And at that time, it was the largest billiards company in the whole world. This one, I don't know. Maybe someone does and can give me more information, but these are 2 L. Reuter tokens. And in my directory, it said that he was a paper hanger in Washburn, but I can't imagine they would have tokens for a paper hanger. So if you know anything about a L. Reuter guy, I'd love to know. And I didn't know they needed dog licenses back in the 1800s. And so here's just some of my dog license that I found, and this one right here is my favorite one. 1904, it has that little dog in there. Isn't that amazing? That they made that in 1904, and it's so dang cute. And it's a dog house. Must have been a special dog. So I don't know about everybody who's a metal detectorist, but a lot of people I know, we have a bucket list of things we want to find. And this was on my bucket list, and so when I found it, I was just elated. It's an old railroad switch lock from when the railroad came to Washburn in the 1880s. Because there's a little S on here, there's a little S right there, it's a switch lock. And I always got confused how to explain it. It's to secure the railway track to prevent unauthorized or accidental changes to the track alignment. So then the trains won't hit each other. So they locked it up with this big, big lock. And it, like I said, it's just, oh, that thunder is about this big. It's heavy and thick. And this is, look at all the quality of stuff they made way back when. Like, our baggage takes now are what? Some little paper thing they throw in your bag at the airport? Well, here's one for a baggage, or a bag from the railroad of the Burlington Northern Route. And that route was not around here, so people would have to go like to Duluth or Chicago or Milwaukee in order to get, or St. Paul, to get on that train, then to come up to the other train that I just showed you. Yeah, the other train was the Chicago, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Omaha Railroad. This was really cool. This is yeah, you can't, it's all bent, so I couldn't get a good picture of it, but it's the door handle from the Lincoln School. And when I was detecting that yard where the Lincoln School was, the guy has not moved, but I gave it to him. I don't know if he gave it to the next people or not, but I kept hitting this big signal line like, I bet that's a pipe. That's gotta be a pipe. And then I'd go the next thing like, there's that darn pipe. Finally I thought, I'm gonna see if that's a pipe. And here was this gorgeous door handle thing. I have one back there. I can't remember where I got that one, but you can just see how intricate and beautiful these brass plates are on door handles. And here's another watch fob. This is from the Castle on the Hill. So it's Washburn High School class of 1915. I don't know if it's, yeah, Washburn High School must have been. So that was a surprise to find. This thing, when I found this, I had no idea what it was. And I thought, it's like, this can't be a metal duck. What the heck is this? And so when I finally got it all cleaned up, it says AG Zipper Bottling Co. And I still couldn't figure out what it was. And finally I found that it was the top of a seltzer bottle that would have looked like that. So it was made in Ashland. This is a Oddfellows badge drop. And so the Washburn chapter of their Independent Order of Oddfellows, it was listed in that book that I have in 1888, so it was there before then. And it's dedicated to humanitarian efforts, and it would have looked like that. Of course, I went back many times trying to find the rest of it, but I didn't find it. But in 1888, these are the people that were in the Oddfellows Club. And so those might be some people that you maybe know about. And the badge was awarded after 25 years of being a member. This is what's called a number tag. And you can find these every once in a while, and it's like, what the heck is it? This is from DuPont. Every once in a while you find a DuPont thing from the DuPont factory. And number tags were either used for tool checks, so you knew who had what tools, or work checks, so you know who's working and when for payroll and at the company store. Or people had these car tags, they're attached to mine cars, so workers got credit for their work. I have found a mine car tag from the northern part of Minnesota. And I don't know if you went to the one that they did about the club. Coke Lindsay maybe showed you a slide like this, because I gave it to Coke when she was getting ready for her presentation. This is from the YMCA. It's now the club, but it was a YMCA a long time ago for the DuPont workers. This is also a local thing. This penknife belonged to Nels P. Swanson. Did anybody know him? So through a lot of different research, I was able to find out who his granddaughter was, and I returned that to her, and she was happy to have it. It was her grandpa's knife. And this is something I never knew about. Before they had credit cards, they had something called charge-a-plates. And this one belonged to Ivadell McDonald. She graduated from Washburn High School in 1922. And she worked as an office manager at a Milwaukee insurance company. So this is from the Milwaukee Gimbal store. It's like, I never heard that. And if I tried to find someone related to Ivadell McDonald, but I can't find anyone. So if you know any relatives of hers, well, she could have that. This is what they call a teacher's watch. We had permission to detect St. Louis Church, and so I found that at the church. And Carolyn Green, who is really good at figuring out calligraphy, well, she can't even figure that out. So because we were trying to figure out which sister would have had that. Carolyn has all the different things we found there because, you know, like I give stuff back, and I think she made a little box with a display on it so you could look at it. And I have no idea what this is, but I know you can't see it, but it does say on it John Anderson on this. And so it's one of those mystery things like, what the heck is that? And John Anderson was the name of Washburn's first chief of police. And here's some miscellaneous things. These are Croto bells, and I have brought one. Doesn't that sound great? So, you know, everybody rode in horses and sleighs in the winter, and you had to have Croto bells on the harnesses so that the pedestrians could hear you coming. And in fact, in some places in Canada, if you didn't have them, you got charged $1 fine because it's illegal to run your sleigh without quarter bells on them. And they're beautiful. You find quite a few of those or parts of those. So I bring my niece up detecting every once in a while, and she's so fun to detect with because she gets so excited. And so this is something that she found. She was digging in sand. We were in a sandy place, and digging and digging and digging, and then finally she exclaims, "I found something terrifying and awesome or amazing." And it's like, well, what the heck did you find? Here she found this, and it looks like a swastika. But before the 1930s, you can see there's a, whoops, gotta go back, a little horseshoe on there. See the little horseshoe here? These were for good luck. And so people had those all the time, and now, you wouldn't want to be caught dead with one of those.
So they carried that around?
What?
What did they do with them?
This is a pin.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a pin. Good luck pin.
yeah.
It's okay. So I was detecting with my niece again, and I found one like this. I found this, and she found one the same shape, and we had no idea what they were. She goes, "I think they're kind of like miniature toilet seats." And so for a long time, we didn't know what we had, maybe some with dollhouses or something, and I was looking in a magazine, and then I find that it's a heart heel plate. And what the legend, I don't know if it's true or not, but what I read was that these plates were put on the heels of ladies of the night. And so then the men could follow the heels in the sand or in the dirt to find them. So you merely follow the hearts in the dust. And people find these often in Civil War camps. And so that was just a thing. And there's a saying among metal detectors that treasure's where you find it. And this was in my yard. It's really cute. It's an old cast iron cobbler shoe stand base from the 1890s. I'm not sure what this is, but all what I look for all the time, all that I have seen is that it's a late 1800s Knights Templar sword belt hanger. Some places identify it as Masonic. There would have been a chain down here hanging from the bottom, and that would attach to a sword. And then behind it is like a loop that you could put it on your belt. If anyone has an idea what the heck that is, I would be great. But that's what I have found so far. This is another watch fob. This is for the Roosevelt and Fairbanks presidential election in 1904. And like I said here, they must have been really campaigning around here because I have found 2 of those. So match safes, they're also called Vesta cases. Back when they first made matches, they weren't safety matches like we had, those ones with the red and then the little whitish top that you strike. They were really flammable. And so if you just kept matches in your pocket, they could start on fire. And so they made these things called a match safe. And this one is absolutely gorgeous. It's made out of silver. The guy's property that I found it on, I gave it to him. He loves it so much, sometimes he puts it in his pocket and carries it around. So it's really something. People also use them to put stamps in. And this is like a puzzle to me. I have found a couple of these. It's a Bull Durham tobacco advertisement. They were kind of known for their interesting advertisement things. And these were in 5-pound bags of tobacco in 1914. So I want to know if women use tobacco or if guys wore charms. like, why would they put a charm in a tobacco thing? So I just thought that was just a really interesting kind of thing. These are what they call chatelaine perfume bottle pendants. And back in the Victorian era and into the early 1900s, people would wear them like a necklace. And I don't know if this is true or not, but what I read is that they had smelling salts in some of them to revive women who had a dizzy spell because their corsets were too tight. But this little one here, I was able to open it, and it still smells like perfume. I know, it's amazing. These are just kind of some common things that you find when you metal detect. These are hem weights. They were sewn into the bottom hems of skirts and different things like that to keep the hems down. And then the bigger ones they put in curtains to kind of keep the curtains weighed down. And then these are some more common kind of things to find detecting. In fact, we always joke that we're not done detecting the yard until we find a harmonic reed. Because back in the day, they didn't have TV or anything, so almost everybody played an instrument. And so a lot of the common instruments were harmonicas. And then these little ones like that were from like squeeze boxes. And then we find a lot of copper plumbing things. Then there's always jewelry to be found, jewelry cases, and also these are cosmetic cases. And one of the more fun things is to research cosmetics, because there's always really racy stories about the people who make cosmetics. Like people would pretend they were a doctor and put all these different things inside a cosmetic and get run out of town. And there was one woman who made cosmetics, and then somehow her really icky husband got her committed to an insane asylum. And you know, they're just really racy kind of things when you find some cosmetic. This is Little Orphan Annie Secret Society decoder. And back in the 30s, on the radio, Ovaltine sponsored a Little Orphan Annie radio program. And on the radio program, every week, they gave out some type of a secret code, and then you use your decoder to figure out what it was. And this is missing the top spinning part where you could, but you probably can't see it, but there's letters and numbers on there. And these are Cracker Jack toys. I didn't know that they were made as early as 1896. You can see that that was a coal scoop. You can hardly see it anymore. And then here's a pistol. And those were from the 20s. And that tennis racket is from the 30s. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, a long time ago, when I had Cracker Jacks, I only got those little water tattoos. And did you guys find maybe some plastic top, but nothing cool like a tennis racket. And then this part here, that's a coin. And so they had a Cracker Jack Mystery Club. This is the back of that one. And so it was founded in 1933, and they had these presidential tokens. And there's 31 in the set, from George Washington to FDR, and they discontinued them in 1936. Anything that's made out of aluminum doesn't really clean up that great most of the time. Here's some Tootsie Toys. I have quite a few Tootsie Toys and parts of Tootsie Toys. These are the ones that are in good shape. My favorite, it doesn't even look that great, but it's that one. As one of the first Tootsie Toys ever made. It was made like in 1919. There's a military airplane and a roadster and a race car. This is like an airport tow truck. And then from 1920 to 1937, they made dollhouse furniture for cardboard dollhouses, and here's a little toilet. This is another thing that had kind of a racy story. So Tootsie Toys were made by these Chicago brothers, Charles and Sam Doust, and then Sam's son, Theodore. And they started making these after the Model T, and the name Tootsie was inspired by Theo's daughter, Catherine, who was the reason her nickname was Tootsie, but unfortunately she died at the age of 16. For some reason this year I have two of these. It's a Boy Scout neckerchief slide. So this wasn't part of their uniform until 1923, and the back of this one, usually they have like folded over ends, and then you put the neckerchief in there. But this one has riveted ones, so that means it's from before 1940. So this is an old Boy Scout neckerchief. Can you see the hieroglyphics on there at all? Okay, I'm sorry. Well, this is another watch fob. It was one of my favorite ones, and it's this whole part here is Egyptian hieroglyphics. So you can imagine when I'm detecting, I didn't find the bottom part, but I found that, and I'm like, I think there's hieroglyphics on here. I wonder how old this is. And of course it's not old, but it was just the design. And so it's just a watch fob, and I finally figured that out, and then I knew that there was a bottom to it. So of course I had to go back to that house several times until I found that darn bottom. But it's a really cool Art Deco watch fob. That one would have really hung down on somebody's lap. Oh, I'm almost to the end. And so this is my coin purse surprise. And so I was detecting this empty lot, and it was almost winter. There was some snow and stuff, and I always wondered what it'd be like to find a coin purse. And then I found one, and it was full. I could tell it was kind of full, and I opened the zipper, and there's nothing inside there. And I'm like, there's something in here. I gotta be able to get this open. So I looked, and there was another zipper, and I opened it. Like, oh, there's all these rings inside there. And so I had hid it in my trunk so nobody would find it, because I was just so nervous and excited about finding it. And then finally when I got home, I cleaned it all up, and here you go, it was just a big ring find. There was 12 of them. They were gold with diamonds, 1 gold with opal, 1 sterling silver, and 9 costume jewelry. And so I called the police department. I said, did anyone ever report any missing jewelry? No, call the county. I called the county. They didn't have anything. And so I gave it to the homeowner, and she was just in a bad place with bad things happening in her family. She was so heartwarming. It was like, you know, those are, to me, that's better than having a bag of jewelry. I actually took it up to the New Me jeweler guy, you know, the guy with the weird jacket on TV. And so they wouldn't evaluate the diamonds at all. He said they were too small to really evaluate them. But the gold there was worth about $400 worth of gold. So I think that the property owner might have turned it in to cash it in, because that's what I think I had to do with it. But the thing was a gift that kept on giving, because I'm friends with these guys online, and this one guy said, you gotta send that to Mine Lab Find of the Month, and because I use a Mine Lab metal detector, and I won. And so in the mail I get this big box full of Mine Lab swag. So this shirt is just from having the find of the month, and I have a backpack, I have some mugs, I have hats, I got a kids detector, you know, I just got all this swag from Mine Lab. And then I wrote a story about it in the Western and Eastern Treasure magazine. It was featured as a best find of whatever year that was that I found that. And so I do have a ring binder of the articles I've written for that magazine, and if you wanted to look at more pictures of the ring find, it would be in there. And that's all. When I was preparing for this, oh good, the timing's good, you said about 45 minutes. I didn't know how long to make it. As you see from those books, each of those books has hundreds of pictures of finds. And so I wanted to really hone in on things I have found in Washburn and things related to Washburn. So if you ever want me to come and check in your yard, some of the folks here have had me do that. That's my contact information. I do have business cards back there, but I'm also a member of the Ring Finders. and Lost My Stuff. And so they're both international organizations that if you lose something, you can contact someone from there. Like the Ring Finders, it'll have like pick your country and then pick your state, and, you know, so I'm under Wisconsin, and then they'll show a map of Wisconsin, and I'm up in the northern part. And so people contact me if they lose something, and so, you know, we go out and find lost wedding rings for people or whatever. I found lots of property stakes for people, car keys, things like that. So, and I also have a little blog, I think it's called a blog, with some of the ring finds that I've had in there. And then those people who are in there, some of them do it for that. That's what they do for a living, is they find stuff for people. I always don't charge people. For me, the reward is almost everybody return a ring to cries, and they're so happy. And so that is my reward. If I go really far, I usually get gas money, but and don't tell a guy that I do it for free, because he's lectured me about charging when I've talked to him. And then the Lost My Stuff people, there's not as many of those, but you have to commit to saying you'll find people's stuff for them for free. So if you ever know someone who's missing something, go to that site and check in with them and find somebody. The people I've talked to that are on that site are always more than happy to help people find stuff. So they're kind of like me that way. And someone has asked me about if you ever found a big treasure. Did you ask me that, Sandy? No, who asked me if I've ever found a big treasure? So I didn't find this in Washburn, but this is a big silver cache. And so this guy in Minnesota called me up because he called Garrett Metal Detectors. Now, I'm a Mind Lab person, but they saw my name on the Ring Finders. They told this guy to call me up, and so he calls me up. He goes, in 1980, in the 80s, I buried a whole bunch of silver, and I can't find it. And so they were an older couple in their 80s, and I knew they needed the money, and so I drove for hours into Minnesota, and we looked for an hour where he thought he buried it, and he said he buried it maybe 15 inches, and I'm like, well, that's pretty deep for a metal detector. I should be able to find this. I'm swinging under this shed where he thinks it is. I'm digging roots of trees and just digging and digging, and finally decide, well, maybe we should check the other side of this shed. Sure enough, that's where it was. And so there is this whole bag of silver coins, and then I think it was 12 100-ounce bars of silver. At the time, he sold it for $47,000. So and the guy had a heart attack. And it's like, if he told his son and his dad where he buried it, the son couldn't remember and the dad had died. And so if he had died, it would have been stuck under that shed forever. So that was my good deed. That was just this last summer. So you ride high on a find like that for a very long time. And he didn't give us a big bar, but he gave us some of the 1-ounce silver and $100. He gave both of us $100 worth of silver that day. And his wife was like, "Oh, we can pay off our car." You know, you knew they needed the money at that point. So it was a real great experience. And that's all I have. I mean, like I said, I could go for hours, but I just wanted to kind of keep it to this much time. I know it's a winter night, and I know they always have to put stuff away, and so if you have any questions, I do have a display back there. You sure are welcome to look at my books or my articles. Lynn?
What was the deepest treasure? How far does your wand go down to detect
It really depends on the soil conditions, because the metal detector sends an electric current, I can't remember if it's an electric or magnetic current, down into the dirt, and then it pulls it back up. If it hits something metal, it'll alter that and send a signal up. And so I was detecting in sand one time, so it didn't have a lot of extra minerals in it. Usually it'll go the depth of the coil, and I think I have like a 9.5-inch coil right now on one detector. I have a giant coil for other things. So I found a mercury dime at about 1 foot once, but that was in sand. So it really is variable.
Any other questions? Bradley?
Do any Any detectors use ground penetrating radar?
I think that's a whole different kind of thing with, that you kind of have to push it as a machine. Anyone here watch that Oak Island show? Yeah. Do you see the ground penetrating radar? It's almost like a lawnmower kind of thing. Yeah. So I don't use that at all. It would be tricky. Yeah, metal detectors, they make it look easy, but it's actually a little computer that you have to learn how to use and stuff. So takes a while to get good at a detector. I bought a new one last year and I still haven't figured it out.
Okay, now my microphone is working better. Any
Okay.
other questions?
Do you use anything special to clean what you find?
Mostly a lot of soap and water. I have a little kit called Andre's pencils. And so they're little pencils that inside of it is different grits, I would think, of steel wool. And so, you know, you can clean it that way. I soak things in soapy water for a long time. The stuff I showed you here are pictures from my books. And before I take pictures, I really clean them good, and then I put a little coat of mineral oil on them, because everything will have this little grayish film on it. And so I polish it a little with mineral oil to let it stand out and take a better picture. And then use a lot of lights on that. I got C's in art. I'm terrible at art. But I can do a little bit with cameras and lights. That's a good question. Yeah.
What kind of metal is in those fobs?
I would guess there's some of them that are copper or brass. I would think that, like that Washburn one is probably pot metal, or I don't know. It's just really variable. I think most of them are brass, though.
More questions? Well, I want to make sure we thank, oh, here's one.
Yeah, so great presentation, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
But, you said that lock was on your bucket list.
Yeah.
So do you have anything else on your bucket list?
Of course, every coin. Like right now, I'm really trying to find a silver dollar because I don't have one.
Okay.
And I'm really trying to find a class ring. And something as odd as an ox shoe I want to find. I've been with this guy detecting once, and he found two of them, and I'm like, and he's never found a lock. And I went every time, and I find lots of locks. What else? Like I said, this year was the first time I found a really nice seated coin, like with Liberty sitting down. I have a dime. It's, if you know coins, you know what a seated coin is. And then what else is on my bucket list? I'd love to find a badge. I think that'd be cool. I go to this thing every year in North Carolina, metal detecting, called Dig Stock. And so they lease all this land, and I can't remember how many people go there, but I really want a large cent, you know, because that's when our country was born. I would love to find one of those. And a half dime. You know, a lot of coins I should have looked at my list before I came. But my niece, who I detect with, almost every time I detect in the woods, I come home with an axe head. And so I have had a lot of axe heads, but that was on my niece's bucket list. And this year when she came, she found a goofy axe head, and she just starts dancing like, I got an axe head finally. And it's like, oh, brother. Yeah. Yeah.
Do detectors ever prank each other by burying weird stuff?
I know we've thought about it. Here's my thing is that I'm from Washburn, and I know these guys that hunt in Hayward, and they kind of come up to my territory sometimes. And so we had this idea once to throw those little gold-wrapped coins places, like, so they think they got a gold coin, and it's like, no, it's a chocolate-covered coin, or a chocolate coin.
Any other questions tonight? Sue will probably hang out for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
After she gets disconnected with her equipment, and please don't come past the cones because we don't want anybody getting hurt or any equipment falling over. But she's got her table at the back, and I know she'd be happy to keep answering questions for a while. But this is what I love about Tony Woiak presentations. You never know what you're going to hear. And let's give her a hand. This is a great night.
And you guys are great. Sometimes, like if I'm at different things and I'll talk about metal detecting, and people just go, oh, brother. Like I try to show my sisters my books, and it's like, oh, they don't want anything to do with it. So you guys have been great audience.